Pizza delivery. Hotel workers and housekeepers of Reddit. What is your Nitro story? How would you rate it 1 to 10? Story 1. I was a delivery guy for 8 years, and I have enough stories to write a book. Every family reunion I would tell stories from the previous year's experiences. I'll give you a quick overview, just some of the stories. Even to this day, my family will bring up stories I told them, but I forgot about them until they brought them up. Law. I'm just typing without caring about spelling and grammar, so here goes. Forgot to bring a 2-liter of Sprite to these chicks getting ready to go clubbing. Went back to the pizza shop. The owner said to bring them to say sorry. Knocked in the door, she peeked her head around the door with her obviously bare body behind it. Handed her 1 2-liter. She reached around and showed me her melon while grabbing the first 2-liter. Tried not to look, but, even without looking directly at something, you get a nice view. Then I said, I actually brought 2. So instead of putting that one down and grabbing another, she just bare in front of me holding 2 2-liters, showing me the world. The random crazy story doesn't stop there. I head back to the shop and tell the co-workers what just happened. You have a good laugh and the boss has to head to the next delivery. I get to a different hotel, and it's a dude that answers. 2 dudes with 2 women sitting on the same chairs in the room, and they hear her telling the guys about her delivery driver. I laughed and said, Hey, I just delivered to you. You look different with clothes on. We laughed. Easily my most memorable delivery. Used to deliver to a nudist, 50-ish, pretty saggy. Had no care in the world that I saw her. It wasn't the greatest, but yeah, delivered to a woman who passed out. A girl like maybe 5 to 6 years old pays for the pizza and just does her own thing. Pill bottles all over the living room table. I called the cops. No clue what came of it. Felt obligated. Delivered to 4 dudes. 3 of them rushed outside bare naked when I got there. The 4th dude locked the door laughing. One of the guys said, We asked for the female driver. One of their friends. Pretty funny. They asked who had the cash and where it was. Delivered to a poker game with a bunch of 60-year-olds or so. Richer group of guys that bought out the top of a hotel. The 10 men were playing poker out in the hall. The wives were at the end of the other hall, all in little going out to dance gowns. An old man told me to drop the pizzas off at the table and collect the money from his wife. Found the wife, and she had a 50 tip for me if I got out from between her obvious fake melons popping out of her gown with my teeth. I was young, too embarrassed, just grabbed it and said thanks. Delivered to a bridesmaid's party. Women were like, The pizza's here. Just kidding, it's the s***er. Pulling up my shirt and a couple of girls laughing, rubbing their hands on my chest. Super embarrassing. I'm not a dancer and shy. Been tipped pills. Been tipped grass. Delivered to 2 people doing the deed. Seeing a couple of willies. Delivered to a highway patrol or sheriff convention. An off-duty police officer says, Come on in, have a beer with us. Sorry, I can't. He says, Want one for the road? Well, yep, let me get right on that. Delivered to an off-duty cop's house that reeked of good stuff. Delivered to a maybe 15-year-old or so that answered the door, and as I was handing her the pizza, her uncle said, Hannah, flash him. You might get a discount. I only know it was her uncle because she turned embarrassed and said, Uncle Tom, or some other name. An easy way to make some extra tip is when you smell grass, just breathe in and say, It smells good in here. It's always met with, Ah, he's a cool dude. Delivered to an addict or something. I was met with a gun in someone's hand. He constantly looked out his windows the whole time and was trying to get the delivery done. I'm 34 now and I delivered from 18 to 26 or so at a resort party vacation town, Osage Beach, Lake of the Ozarks, Missouri. Party covetai people riddled this town, so I've seen my fair share of weird stuff and lots more I'm forgetting. Delivered to a guy that sat in the phone and he ordered, Get here in time, you have 2 chicks swimming in the pool. Got there just as they were walking out to the hotel room. Once I got in the room, the guy said, Oh girls, drop your towels and give him a hug. They both hugged me, both with one leg propped around me like Captain Morgan. The giant bottle of Jaeger is empty in the sink. One couple goes into one of the spare rooms and starts screwing a dude. Lights on, door wide open. The other girl just starts playing with her little split-legged in the living room floor right in front of me. 2 guys behind me just watching the girl. Really awkward. Random stuff happens to delivery drivers, trust me. I used to make $200 to $300 in cash every week at night and $100 and $200 every weekend in my town. It was pretty nice at 18 with no cares to go to college or learn a trade at the time. And yet the number of girls that would come down from Kansas and St. Louis to be dock girls making $30,000 to $40,000 in a summertime job, just showing their bikinis off and pumping gas for boys with boats, making hella tips. Delivered to the girls gone wild bus. I had multiple $100 tips. $250 biggest ever, but that was like 60 pies 2 or 3 trips. Once delivered to a hotel, and while in the elevator a guy said, "I'll give you $80 right now for that pizza." 3 pies. The ticket was like $40. Gave him the pizza, collected the cash, called my boss and said, "I need 3 pies now." Delivered the pies again like 20 minutes later with no issues. Once collected in a 110 bill. Drunk woman pays with 200 bills. I think she thought it was $110. Started to walk away, had a guilty conscience and turned around and knocked. As soon as I did, I knew I made a mistake. Should have kept walking. Told her what happened. She gave me a $100 bill, $10 bill, and $5 bill. I was like, you could have given me a $100 bill and a $50 bill and saved $50. For Pete's sake. Delivered to a hospital, and as I'm in the hospital I come out to find a guy waiting for his ride inside my car, looking for my tips. I know it's my fault. I had windows down and a couple of pies in the back. I kept my tips in my middle console thing, but I'm like, dude, what the f***? Get out of there. He was like, I'm hungry. Come on, get the hell out. Once delivered a pizza to a club, and as I'm going to leave, a guy runs up asking for a ride. I'm not supposed to give rides. He says they'll give me a tip. I gave him a ride. Pretty close to the shop anyway. He gives me $100 for my troubles, and my way back from a delivery in the rain, I see a young guy like 18 or so walking down the road. I stop and ask if he wants a ride. It can take him as far as my shop and let him use the phone. He's crying. He says thanks and tells me he's 3 buddies left in because he pissed them off or something. It was from St. Louis, so hours away with no phone and no help, no friends. Felt really bad for the bloke. Delivered to a club as it was closing. As I walked back to my car, a super drunk guy's carrying one of my pizzas off in between houses. I'm yelling to give those pizzas back. A group of other people walking back to their condo start to help me and call him jerk and stuff. I get the pizza back, untouched and unbitten, and then the night goes on as normal. Delivered to I think. She was wearing a shirt and nothing else with the name of a local club. She paid me nothing but once, total of $40. I'm now an HVAC guy instead in people's basements for 1 hour or so. And get to know people's lifestyles intimately. 1,000+ basements a year. Some of my stories are awesome. Geez, that's a lot of stories. This guy could write a book from all those crazy encounters. I'd buy it. Story 2. A few years ago, the hotel I was working at had a few jacuzzi suites. This man and woman checked in and gave a trashy vibe from the very beginning. We got to the check-in and everything is fine until a few hours later. I got a call from the room. The man is clearly intoxicated and begins his rant about how his air conditioning isn't working. I immediately rolled my eyes and groaned internally, as 9 times out of 10 people have a steaming hot bath and fail to realize that turning on the switch doesn't immediately create a winter wonderland. This is where I've been generally placating to resolve this as easily as possible. We don't have maintenance on hand at this time. However, I'd be happy to move you directly across the hall for the night. This isn't good enough. No, I want you to look at it. That's your job. Come look at it now. Well, technically he's right. However, he's drunk and calling someone an idiot when they're sober isn't the most fun experience to begin with. So I make my way to his room, knock on the door, and he opens the door. Bam! Blasted by the hot air immediately. Who knew? I immediately knew something wasn't right. The room was completely dark, saved for a few flickering lights. My internal nope sensors were going off. And then I saw more than a dozen tea lights flickering in the room, drunk man wearing leopard print undies. I walked inside to make my way to the air conditioner. I didn't get too far before I was greeted by a woman on my right. She's friendly and polite and completely undressed on top of the bed. I retained my professionalism, reading her and making my way to the air conditioner. Sure enough, it's working fine. It's warm in the room because of the jacuzzi. Explained the situation to the man again. Your air conditioning seems to be fine, sir. All I can do at this point is move you across the hall. After some general rambling, the man leans in toward me and whispers in my ear, General is at half salute tonight. Can you do the deed with my wife for me? While he's explaining this to me, his wife is finding a more comfortable position on the bed. Now spread eagle, I politely decline his offer and apologize for being the Canadian that I am, and return to the front desk and never hear from him for the rest of the month. The next night I came in and I was presented with a "How did we do?" card where the comments stated they were very happy with our stay, although disappointed I didn't sleep with his wife. At this point, the only reason people aren't happy with Canadians is because they're too nice. Story 3. I delivered Meals on Wheels for a few years and would always spend a lot of time at 2 of the houses. One lady had mild dementia. She remembered me most of the time, but always told me about the tree in her backyard she and her husband had planted when they bought the house as newlyweds in the 50s. I made sure to ask to see it every time and to absolutely go wild at how amazing it was. She always made me tea and we chat about just random things. She was a real joy. The other was an old man who never had any lights on in his house. He just smoked cigarettes and watched TV. I'd usually have cigarettes with him and talk about young ladies and cars, stuff he loved, but would never likely experience again. He'd always say something like, "Get any good action lately?" And I'd lie or tell the truth if it involved talking about nice melons and short skirts or whatever. I know that's probably not a welcome topic here, but I think he just needed someone to talk to, so I played into his interest. That dude was hilarious, though. He always offered to lend me his old Cadillac if I was having a hard time getting action, as he'd say it. Imagine Blue from old school, and that was him, just less mobile. It takes a lot of effort to be patient with old people going through mental problems. Good to know people like this guy still exist. You know what doesn't take a lot of effort? Leaving a like in this video and subscribing to the channel. Story 4. I was a housekeeper at a hotel for a few years and lived in an expensive city, so rent was high but the pay covered the basics. One day my boss came up to my cart and warned me not to start cleaning a particular room until it was clear. It's not unheard of for guests to request late-night checkouts or stay an extra day, but I have never heard someone talk about a cleaning delay in such terms before. Then after 10-ish minutes, a 30-something white male and a paramedic jog over to the room I was warned about. I didn't think it was my business to start prodding, but my first thought was, oh crap, dead body. I've heard stories from other hotel staff. It's rare, but it happens. This time the situation was sort of worse than that. Elderly Vietnam vet rented a room with a sole intention of ending it all, called his son to say goodbye, and the son called for an ambulance. He'd already taken a crap ton of pills, but his body rejected them and he puked and dumped them all over the room. They escorted the elderly man out of the room. There were tears streaming down his cheeks and he wouldn't stop apologizing for the mess. It took 2 hours to clean what I could. We had to call a specialist service to get the rest. I wasn't angry this time. It was one of the saddest things I'd ever seen. 8 out of 10. Story 5. Probably not what you came here to see, but I used to work at the front desk of a crappy, no pun intended, hotel. One day, the housekeepers found a room where the occupants had taken a steamy number 2 in the tub and turned the heat up to 90 before checking out. It was not safe to work there. Story 6. I delivered room service at a nice hotel back in '89. One night I got a delivery for a bottle of high-end scotch to the penthouse suite. Great sale as I get an automatic 17% on all orders. So the door opens and I get invited in. There are about 20 young Japanese men in the room and they have one of the guys pinned down on the bed, wailing away in his bare feet with a shoe. I see this and don't know whether to laugh or call security. They see the stunned look in my face and reassure me that this is a bachelor party tradition where they are from. Sounds reasonable to me, so I go about my way. On my way out, several of the guys discreetly slid 10s and 20s into my hand as tips. After a couple more deliveries that night, I walked with over $250 from that room alone. 10 out of 10 would recommend. Yeah, that's totally a traditional thing that normal people do. Not weird at all. The homies and I've been doing that before was cool. Story 7. There was a guy who ordered the same way every week. You know who this is, give me the usual. And then hangs up. His name was Ron, and as usual was a large burned 14-inch sausage pizza. Like there's well done where we make the cheese the uniform brown, but he wanted it further than that. Not literally black dust, but really dark all over. It was always delivered, and he tipped very well. Our drivers take orders and drive only. It didn't work other positions. I worked the oven then would only go on deliveries, if we were way behind in orders. One day in December I get a call from Ron and I say, I know your address but I've never been there. Is it easy to find? He replies, it's the one with 2 reindeer screwing in the front yard. So I'm driving around these cookie-cutter townhomes that all look the same, and sure enough, there's one with a decorative reindeer mounting another out front. I walk up to the door, in this super tan Italian guy, in a purple robe and leopard print briefs, because his robe was wide open, answers the door, shout at me, you must be new, here you go, and throws a 20 at me. The bill was $13. This was in 2001. Only a 2 out of 10 in terms of stuff, but man, that was a memorable delivery. Seeing this man in person who had cooked pizza for every week for 2 years was like seeing a centaur or a unicorn. 10 out of 10 as a customer, though. Predictable, direct, kept it quick, tipped well. Ever seen a guy with such unique characteristics before? He sounds like some funny NPC in a mafia game. Story 8. A friend of mine works at a hotel. This guy called the front desk asking if they could fix the heater, which is a very common request, even though they're very easy to operate. She went up to his room, and when she got there, he had handcuffed himself to the bed and was bare. Guess he was confident he would go for him because she didn't have the key. He left him there with no key, there, and didn't close the door all the way. Ah, the naked man, but with a twist. He should have known it only works 2 out of 3 times. Story 9 was one of 2 maintenance men at an apartment complex. Thankfully, 2 older, trashy women preferred the other guy. They would wear old, worn-out, lacy things every time he was scheduled to be in their unit for repairs. There were also borderline hoarders. Story 10. The most delivery I ever did was delivered to a couple in a hotel. The woman answered and paid, wearing only her undies and a tight-fitting t-shirt, and her chest was ginormous, and she tipped $10. Due to how close this hotel was to the shop, that's basically a 10 out of 10 delivery. Story 11. I used to work in a hotel as the front desk supervisor. Please don't answer the door in a towel. Ask us to wait if you need to throw on some clothes real quick. I can't tell you how many times it brought something up to a room. The person answered the door in a towel and then accidentally dropped some or all of the towel reaching for whatever I brought them. Please put some clothes on. Story 12. I delivered pizza for 5 years. Seen a lot of millions, people in the middle of doing the deed, etc. The one that sticks out was a very attractive lady coming to the door after her boyfriend went to get her wearing the most see-through lingerie I've ever seen. She might as well have had nothing on. It stands out because of how damn attractive she was and how she just stood there for a long time letting me soak it all in. I think they got off on that stuff, and I am super pissed I got the order right and didn't forget anything, law. Story 13. A new freelance IT work. I leave business cards at hotels, and sometimes a business person has a PC problem. It has been a pretty nice source of income. I get a call one night from this woman staying at one of the nice upscale places. Her PC has crashed, and she has a presentation in the morning. I pack some spare parts and head over. I get there when it doesn't take long to see her hard drive is failing. The fix takes a while. I have to clone her drive to a new one, then disassemble her notebook to replace it. It could take 3 hours, easily, depending on how long it takes to clone her old drive. I offered to take it with me and return it early enough to make her. It would be cheaper for her too, but she doesn't want to let the PC leave her side, so I get to work. Most of the time, I'm just sitting there watching the PC. She says she would like to go work out in the gym. I guess she decided I'm trustworthy looking. She's about 45, and like most women executives, she's fit and attractive, but she's all business. Never smiles even for a second. I had to ask her some questions, passwords, email, addresses, etc. While I'm talking to her, she started to undress. She gets her workout clothes out of her suitcase and goes around the corner to finish changing. She's gone about an hour, comes back to the room. I'm updating her on programs. She goes and starts the shower. She's asking questions and slips off her shorts, has very pretty undies. She turns her back to me and goes into the shower. When she came out, she had one of those white hotel robes. She sits on the bed, drying her hair. I can see her in the mirror. Her robes are open enough to see her melons. I tell her I should be finished soon. All I have to do is take the back off so I can put the new drive in. She goes into the bathroom and comes out wearing a thin cotton nightie. Everything can be seen. The bill came over to $300. She even rounded it up to $400 for the excellent service. Did I miss a chance to screw a lonely businesswoman? Maybe. Well, it was a tricky situation for him, you know. On one hand, he had this opportunity with a hot businesswoman, but on the other hand, he didn't want to risk misinterpreting her signals, or worse, end up facing harassment accusations. So it was like a catch-22 for him. But personally, I think he made the right call by not making a move. Story 14. Pizza delivery for 7 years. Fewer than 10 times did I say anything noteworthy. Usually women who'd answer the door in a towel, but it wasn't the opening scene to those films that you're picturing. But once, I delivered pizza to a group activity in progress. If that's not a 10, I don't know what is, except that I didn't join in. Story 15. I worked for a few months at a 5-star hotel here in Chile back in 2016, and since I speak English, I worked as a receptionist and had to deal with a variety of guests from tourists to businessmen. The common thing to deal with was experts who came to see businessmen. This hotel is near the Costanera Center building in Santiago, so we had businesses and other hotels around. Prostitution is illegal, but we can't assume every girl or boy who comes asking for a specific room is one. However, we can suspect, and for that we use the internal code Charlie. We took their info and kept their ID in the reception in case something happens. It was like my second month there when a man came from Spain and took one room with a king-sized bed and paid for 3 days. Not even an hour after he arrived, Charlie shows up, a 19-year-old blonde girl with green eyes. I took her info and ID, then she went on her way. About half an hour later, another one shows up, a 21-year-old short and tan Latina girl asking for the same room. 1 Charlie. We can turn a blind eye and move on. 2. And we start to worry. Still, I took info and ID then on her way to our Spanish conquistador. We had to kick the guy out when one of my colleagues let in a third Charlie and didn't realize it was for the same room. This time an 18-year-old thin and pale boy with a moonstone necklace. We've got 5 noise complaints after the boy arrived, and according to the guards who went to kick him out, the 4 of them were completely bare and caught a glimpse of the boys behind while the first girl did snow on it. We had to call the cops, and I had to give a statement to them as to why we would allow 3 people into his room. For months, we kept talking about this incident through the maids who had to deal with the stains of this guy's 3-hour stay. Story 16. I used work for a produce delivery service, think Imperfect Foods, but we did our own deliveries. I get to this woman's house at the end of my route, would have gotten there sooner, but she didn't put the house number in the address. And she's wearing a towel, apologizing that she just got out of a bath. She then invited me in, and that's when my dumb remembered that I was parked in front of a fire hydrant. We were a weekly subscription service, so I went back a few times, and every time she'd invite me in, fully clothed, and give me a $5 tip. Story 17. I used to be working in the most fancy hotel of this ski resort. My work was more related to the restaurant of this hotel, but it also involved room service. One time as I was delivering room service, it was about 9 a.m. I heard a scream from the room I was just passing. It cut in so much contrast to the deafening silence of the hallway that I really got startled by it. Only I realized a few seconds later it was a woman hard, gave me a chuckle and went about on my way. 7:10 would startle again. Story 18. Not me, but my sister. She had a man and very pregnant woman come in and check into a suite. Not weird. The next afternoon, another guest comes down and says that they hear yelling in that guest suite, and it sounded like a fight. She went up to check, and sure enough, she heard the woman yelling at someone. The hotel had a security guard, so she went up, and he knocked on the door. The husband answered, and behind him was his wife giving birth on our beds. He thought she was her mom at the door, and they ended up calling 911 because that's the normal thing to do. My sister ended up quitting shortly after. Story 19. I used to work in a downtown hotel in a city of 2 million. There was this old guy, probably between 70 and death, who used to come in every week and ask for a room for him and his mistress. I thought he meant like a 30-something woman, but he brought a 60-year-old with obvious health issues and proceeded to fuck her like a maniac all night when they were there. First few times I just laughed at the fake screams the woman let out, but one morning the cleaning lady started screaming very loudly. Things like, "I can't do this anymore, fug this place," and "I'm going to kill that old." Turns out, Granny was on her period, and they did some hell. So there was blood and diarrhea all over the place. Both of us quit, not much later. Story 20. I was at the desk, and we received a call from the room, and he said under the phone, "I want to lick your p***." And I was really confused and hanged up. Long story short, the dude was expecting the girl who usually works at desk to answer, but she was ill and had to leave work early. Story 21. I never really had anything crazy happen that's as a delivery driver. The area I worked was a college neighborhood, but at best I got flirted with sometimes. I did have an older woman ask if I wanted to come in, but other than that it was relatively PG. My father owns a franchisee of the same company I worked for in a college town at a much bigger party school, and I was definitely flirted with more. But once again, nothing crazy. I knew of an older driver who got flashed once, but I think the stereotype that delivery guys get or see dirty stuff all the time is overplayed. Story 22. I used to be a pizza delivery driver for a local pizza place in my hometown. It was sometime in spring, and I thought it was just a normal day of work. So we get a call from a man wanting a large pepperoni pizza. So still normal. Fast forward till I arrive at his house. I knocked on the door, and it took about 2 minutes for the door to open. However, when the door opened, I encountered a man dripping wet only in a towel. He apologized for causing me to wait at the door. I reassured him that it was fine, but as I was starting to talk and to tell him the amount he owed, I started to stumble on my words cause. I'm a queer male. B. The man was fairly attractive, so after I finally get the words out, he goes for his wallet that's right by the stand by the door, and there goes his towel, and his which, not gonna lie, it was fairly average, but still nice to look at. Decided to say hello. He then proceeds to apologize profusely, and I tried to tell him everything is okay, that there is not a problem. Accidents happen, and that this wasn't the first time, but it was. The exchange for money and pizza happened, and I got a nice little $5 tip. This was also the first time I saw another man's person, so I would say it was 8-10 for being a nice little experience, if I say so myself. Story 23. delivery driver or Domino's around 2000. Once delivered no pizza to a woman who answered wearing a t-shirt that was short enough. I wasn't sure if she was wearing anything else. She was really attractive too. It's entirely possible she was hoping I'd make a move, but I was a super shy college kid, so I took my tip and left. Story 24. I worked for a very popular local pizza chain about 2 years ago, doing delivery. For those of you who don't know, if your boss pays minimum delivery and you're a driver, you get fat money. Anyways, I delivered to a bachelorette party, and the woman who answered the door was topless. I was just honest and told her, "Nice p***s," and smiled. She laughed, we did the exchange, I went home. Story 25. Wasn't a delivery driver per se, but while in the Air Force, I volunteered for a program that provided rides home to people who were too drunk to drive home. Towards the end of the night, I pick up this couple and a female friend of theirs. All three were pretty drunk and brought roadies along for the ride. This wasn't illegal where we were, but was against the base's rules. So about a mile from base, I pull over and flipped on the dome light to tell them to ditch the drinks. I'd even told them a couple minutes ahead of time that I was going to do this. Now, I knew they were getting hot and heavy in the back seat because I could hear them, but it was dark in the vehicle, and thought they were just making out heavily, maybe some hands in the pants. Nope. The couple was half undressed going at it, while friend was playing with herself next to them. They reacted like, "Oh, we're already at the gate," not paying much mind to me getting an eyeful. When I got to the dorms, the girl without a partner invited me up to her room. I declined as I was seeing someone at the time. Story 26. I was a pizza delivery driver for about a year after high school. Never had anything sexy happen, but I will always remember this delivery as being the most WTF. It's a cold night in Colorado. I'm delivering a pizza to a nice new hotel on the outskirts of town. I park and notice a cop car pulled into the handicap spot. I walk in and see the cops talking to the front desk. I walk right past them. The room is on the ground floor right across from the main door. I knock and a lady in her early 30s answers. I hand her the pizza and she's about to pay me. She has the money in her hand and my hand is stretched out to accept it. But the cops have walked up behind me. They ask the lady, "Is your name such and such?" Immediately she starts screaming, "Oh God, he's dead. He's dead, isn't he?" She literally collapses into the ground, holding the pizza, screaming about, "He's dead," and "Oh God, why?" The cops are trying to console her and she is just writhing around on the ground holding the pizza and sobbing and screaming while I'm just standing there kind of stunned. After a few minutes of this, the lady remembers I was there and apologized and gives me the money. I want thinking, and just said the same thing I said to everyone, "Have a nice night." I then proceeded to GTFO. Never learned what that was all about. Definitely the craziest thing that happened to me while delivering not terribly though. Story 27. Pizza delivery. I delivered a few pizzas to a hotel room in a nice hotel, which I found odd because normally hotel orders are only one pizza. Anyway, when the door opened, I saw all kinds of debauchery. There were about a dozen people, drinking and smoking weed. The music was blasting. There was a stack of cash on the coffee table, along with weed and pipes and alcohol bottles. On the bed, there was a guy doing a line of off a naked woman's ass. The guy who answered the door saw me, a mousy 19-year-old girl who was probably wearing an Argyle sweater, and asked, "You want to play?" I said, "Thanks, but this is not my scene." He held up a little baggie of "You want a special tip? You can keep that. I'm just trying to pay my rent. I got you." He gave me a $100 and told me to keep the change, which meant I got a tip of nearly $50, so that was awesome. Story 28. I used to be a housekeeper in a 5-star, well-known hotel chain. I was cleaning an occupied room, so making the bed, changing out the towels, restocking amenities, and a clean. I was almost finished, but on my way out of the bathroom, I noticed the corner of a towel hanging off the top of the wardrobe. I grabbed it on my way past. It was stuck on something, so I yanked it. A fuging plethora of toys and dildos rained down on me. I was turkey-slapped by about 10 different toys. I had no idea what was happening until I looked down at them. So, what else is there to do? I got the chair from the desk, put my gloves on, laid out a fresh towel on top of the wardrobe, and laid the toys back on top. As I had no idea how they had been arranged, originally I just laid them out, smallest to largest, and hoped for the best. They didn't complain, and when they checked out, they even left a tip for me. Story 29. Halloween 2018, delivering pizza for Domino's in a college town. 3 a.m., making my last delivery of the night. I show up at the house, big party going on. It's a duplex, and says back door, sure normal stuff. Girl answer the door in nothing but a pink miniskirt and a choker that says Daddy's. Not even the craziest part. She leaves to go find who ordered the pizza, and directly behind her in a walk-in pantry-like thing is some girl doing a line of or something, a hard 10/10 for being the most memorable experience of my 4+ years at college. I hope you enjoyed the video, and if you made it this far,